Welcome to Exploring the Paranormal. Hosted by Heather Leigh, PhD, Exploring the Paranormal offers a new, fresh look into paranormal research. Join Heather as she discusses some of the many haunted locations worldwide, discusses why these locations are haunted, hear from paranormal researchers about their personal experiences at these locations. Additionally, Heather takes a journey into the science behind the paranormal, discussing topics such as thermodynamics and the Heisenberg principle and how they both affect paranormal activity. Now, your host of Exploring the Paranormal, Dr. Heather Leigh.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Exploring the Paranormal. Today's show is going to be a little bit different than the shows I've done in the past. My guest, Jeff, was not able to make it, so we've kind of changed things up. But don't worry, I will have Jeff on in the future once his life is not as crazy as it is right now. So I know he's been busy with work, and that's one of the reasons why he couldn't make it. So no worries, he'll be on soon for us to joke around, laugh, and discuss all things paranormal, including his different video editing and all of that stuff, and video analyzing, because he's the perfect guy to go for that information. So as always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. But today's topic is going to be based off of my book, Haunted Southern Nevada Ghost Towns. I'm going to do a presentation later on in the show, same presentation that I do at events and when I do different speaking engagements. So you guys can see some photos from these ghost towns. I have added some items that we've captured, and I'm going to leave it up to you guys to decide if you think it's paranormal or not. But we think we see something, but it's all in the eye of the beholder what everyone sees when it comes to paranormal activity and actually capturing it. But I promise you, these aren't your typical ghost orbs that you've caught on, and they're not even related to orbs. But so you'll see them once we get through the presentation. I've put them in there as well as I've edited them just enough to lighten them up so you can get a better look at what we're trying to point out. So yeah, I'm super excited to have you guys here. Great news since the last show. I know I took a week off. I missed you guys. Looking forward to this show. But since the last show, I have submitted finally my next book. I know we have Haunted Florida Lighthouses coming out September 11th, but my next book after that is Haunted Florida Ghost Towns. Don't have a release date for that. They're hoping for later this year, but we're probably looking at spring of next year. So that one will be coming out. And then I'm also in the process of getting contracts signed for 2 new books coming out next year. And that would be Ghosts and Legends of the Florida Pirates, as well as Haunted Florida Roadside Attractions. So stay tuned for more information on those. And if you guys are associated, or if you guys do sign up for my Patreon page, which I talk about on the last show that I've started, we have different levels, starting at $5 up to a couple $100. Different levels get different benefits. You guys know that. And I think it was the $25 level. You start to get sneak peeks of photos, evidence captured, and then also there is a level where you get sneak peeks of the books I'm writing. So as I write the chapter, I share a portion of that chapter for you guys to review and let me know what you think and kind of help me do the writing process. So on my Facebook page, I'll make sure I share that link again later today. But if you just search for Heather Leigh, PhD on Patreon, you're sure to find me on there as well. Also, I was going to bring it down, but I completely forgot. I am going to be attending Phantasm in September here in Orlando. It's September 15th, 16th, and 17th. And one thing about being a Patreon supporter, I believe it is at the $25 level. I'll have to double check, so don't hold me to that one. But at one of the levels, you guys, if you attend an event that I'm at, you will receive a gift. And I have put together a home protection kit. It's in a large mason jar. It includes Palo Santo, sage, a selenite stick, a quartz crystal, and a tube of cascarilla. So and then it's cutely decorated. You guys will see it, and I'll show you guys next week. But I'll have those at the events, and those will be free to anyone who is a Patreon supporter at the time of the event. that is occurring. So make sure you check out that Patreon and keep following me on Facebook for news and updates of more events that are coming. And also, I know a lot of this audience likes when I have Joe Frankie on. Joe Frankie will be at Phantasm with me, and we will be doing a presentation on lighthouses and a few other things that we will be doing together throughout the show. So make sure you check out Phantasm, and if you are in the Florida area, Orlando area, you get to that event and come see us. So make sure you do that. So let's take a look at what I had planned to talk about today. Okay. Oh, real quick, tomorrow night's Ghost Education 101. We are doing a Ouija board panel discussion, and we are going to have board members from the Talking Board Historical Society on there to talk about how to use the board, and kind of, I don't really want to say dangers about it, but how to protect yourself against the dangers. We're going to have an open discussion, and we'll be available to answer any questions you have about using Ouija boards, as well as we're also going to be talking about the history Ghost Towns and Real Haunts 3 is actually, I'm going to show you guys at the end of this presentation. There's previews for those, but they are on Tubi or on Prime. But if you watch them on Tubi, you can watch them for free. And I know there's a real big push for motion picture video. They just recently released, there's a new platform on Tubi that we are on, that the documentaries are on. And then Thursday night's Passport to the Paranormal. Joe and I are just kind of going to have an open discussion and share information on how we do our investigations. And this will be our first 2-hour show. So make sure you guys tune in and check that out. Okay, and don't forget to register for TMCC out in Reno is having me do online classes for them. The ABCs of Paranormal Research will be September 25th, and Ghost Hunting 101 will be October 9th. Both classes run from 6 to 9 p.m. Pacific, and registration is now open for both of those. Okay, and real quick before we get started, I kind of find it funny because we were talking about this before going live. We actually brought up Mike's name. But my book recommendation this week is The Walk in the Shadows. I know it's one of his older ones, but I brought this up because he has his new one coming out, and I'm looking forward to getting that one. But this was he was one of the first guests that I had on Ghost Education 101, and he did a presentation based on this. So if you guys ever get a chance to check that out, absolutely amazing guy, amazing information in this book. He talks about everything from shadow people to light beings and the crawler, and he actually even shares, I believe I remember seeing he has photos from his investigations in here, and he talks about different cases that he's been on where shadow people have been involved, and also the theory that shadow people are interdimensional beings. So it's a really interesting read. So if you guys get a chance, check that out. And I'm going to go, I recently received a message that was sent to me wanting to know, you now have 2 books about haunted ghost towns, and especially with your new one that you mentioned coming out. Why are ghost towns haunted, and what is your favorite ghost town? Okay, well, I'm going to talk briefly in the presentation and a little bit about why ghost towns are haunted. But my favorite one, that's a tough one. I would have to probably say Goldfield, just because that is a place that I've been a couple times, enjoyed the location, lots of history, and I like I always say, picking your favorite haunted location is like picking your favorite child. It's one of those things that it's hard to do, but people do it. And but yeah, I would have to say Goldfield if I had to pick one out of the ones I visited. But if I had to pick one that I haven't visited that I would love to visit, I know Leigh Warner has brought up Eldora. That's one place that I'd like to get to. Definitely, I want to get to Virginia City so bad and check that out. Tonopah. I never actually made it out to Tonopah. Would love to check that out, and that is actually included in the presentation. So yeah, there's a lot of different ghost towns. There's several here in Florida, like I mentioned, Eldora. There was one, the Gamble Plantation is another one that I'd like to hit. But yeah, there's several that aren't even accessible anymore, and including several in, Fort Dade. That was the other one here in Florida that you need to get to. That one, I've seen a lot of pictures of that. We've had plans to get there, but we've kind of pushed those off. So hopefully we can get there in the near future and take care of that. And I can share photos with you. But Fort Dade is a significant chapter in the new book I just submitted. So, and real quick before, just looking at my notes real quick. Next week, we are going to have special guest Howard Petrie. He hosts various podcasts, including The Petri Dish. I don't know if you guys have seen that on Facebook, but he will be on to discuss his nonprofit and FearFest 2023 in New Orleans. So he will be talking about that and discussing the event. He has some amazing guests coming to the event. It's completely 100% for his nonprofit. And that is going to be a fun event if you guys enjoy all things paranormal and horror related. So make sure you tune in next week for that show. I know it's a little early, but we are going to do a quick commercial break. And when we come back, I'm going to have my presentation waiting and ready for you guys. So we'll see you in just a moment.
Are you looking for unbiased and uncensored paranormal and spiritual talk? At WLTKDB.com, we offer several talk shows ranging from self-care to hauntings and everything in between. Find the shows and hosts on our website at WLTKDB.com. You can watch them live or catch up on your latest favorites. While you're there, be sure to check out the store and pick up some of the latest station swag. Did you know we had a station blog or that you can host your own show? It's all online at WLTKDB.com. Looking to advertise? Check out our competitive pricing and let's get you noticed. WLTK Talk Radio has something for everyone. So be sure to stop by and say hello at WLTKDB.com.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. Hi, Leigh. I see you've joined the show. Good morning. You're just in time. We are going to be doing a presentation on haunted Southern Nevada ghost towns, and this is going to be a fun. Oh, yes, there is station swag. You need to check it out, Leigh. And it's a lot of interesting stuff. So make sure you check that out. I know I've looked at it several times. I think there's everything there. If you can think of it, it's there. But yeah, so whenever we can get the presentation up, hopefully we have it. There we go. Thank you, Todd. So for those of you who don't know, I have written a book called Haunted Southern Nevada Ghost Towns. It was based off of our experiences researching and investigating the various ghost towns in Nevada during our filming of Real Haunts Ghost Towns. So we kind of, once we were done with that, a friend of mine told me to submit it to History Press, and he put a recommendation in behind me. And, Peter was like one of my biggest supporters. I miss him dearly, but Peter said, you need to submit that and get that going. And, with his recommendation, the first book was published, and now we're, third book's coming out later this year, and several more coming in the next year. So I definitely appreciate Peter's backing on that and getting that started. So here's the presentation that I use. The photo there, one of my favorite photos, it is of the Goldfield Cemetery, where we did an extensive investigation and a whole bunch of fun research there. It's going to be shown a little bit later, but that was one of my favorite places to go in Goldfield and do different investigations. Okay, so introduction. The Silver State, which is what Nevada is known for, has several ghost towns, several hundred ghost towns. And this was mostly because during the late 19th century and early 20th century, there was a big boom, the gold rush, people looking for to get away from city life. They wanted to find riches, whether it was, mining for the gold or trying to think, opening up shops, saloons, lots of opportunities out west, and people were making that boom to come out here. Residents were essentially searching for a better life. And it's interesting because spirits, they could be there for many different reasons. And I know I'll talk about this later on, but they remain behind creating a ghostly experience, which just adds to the fact that these are called ghost towns. A quote that I've been known to say quite often is ghost towns are like Walt Disney World for paranormal researchers. So it's our place to let loose and have fun, exploring and just diving deep into the history. Okay, so what makes a ghost town? The majority of the ghost towns are in complete ruin. You can see the photo on the bottom over there, and that is of St. Thomas, which I will talk about. I believe I'll talk about. If not, I'll mention it at the end. But that was a ghost town that was completely underwater. And with the receding of Lake Mead, it is now above water. But there's 3 different categories. And that's why, because a lot of people are like, why did you include, in the book, I included Boulder City, which is where the Hoover Dam is. And basically you have completely abandoned, which is like the St. Thomas there. You have working ghost towns, which would be like Nelson, which is the other photo you see there. Goldfield, I would say Gold Point would be a combination of abandoned and working ghost town because there are a few residents still living there. But it's really operated by Walt, and he's the only one basically there that's visible. And the working ghost town, like I said, would be like Goldfield, a couple hundred residents still working to keep the town, trying to preserve the town, and kind of making it, they almost turn them into tourist attractions. So that's kind of interesting how they do that. And the main reason why a lot of people, and on the brink is where the town was booming. So you have a town such as, Boulder City, populated like crazy during the construction of the Hoover Dam. And then once the Hoover Dam construction was done, population was like cut by almost 50 to 75%. So when that happens, that puts it on the brink of being a ghost town, but it's still a functioning and fully populated town. So that's why I included that one in there, because I truly do believe that someday Boulder City is going to end up being a ghost town. These towns suffered extreme economic loss, whether it was the war, natural disaster, government shutdowns, causing residents to need to flee. Many times when they would leave, they would just take what they could carry. And, essentially the town's purpose just no longer existed. It started with, the mines being shut down for, the war, or the government deciding they didn't need the mine anymore. So then the workers and their families would leave town. And then you would have the store owners or, saloon owners. They would be like, well, there's no purpose to be here because there's no one to serve. And then they would leave town. And then you also had that Wild West mentality. So when there was lawlessness, which is Nelson is known for, a lot of people left. So then you just had the outlaws that remained behind, and that kind of just forced everyone else out and turned them, eventually when the outlaws didn't have anyone to pick on or, fight against, they left as well. So that kind of, that's my theories behind what makes a ghost town. Okay, popular ghost towns in Nevada. The ones that are near Las Vegas. So if you're looking for a day trip, you can go to Rhyolite. Rhyolite's a fun one to go to. Pyramid City, and that's in California. Calico, California looks like a fun one. I've meant to be there, but I've never made it out there. Nelson, Belmont, Gold Point, Good Springs, Goldfield, Tonopah, and St. Thomas. And most of those on that list are included. And other popular ghost towns in Nevada, I have Belmont and Manhattan. So Belmont's listed twice, which I guess means everybody needs to get out there and check out Belmont. Pioche, Delamar, Pioneer, Potosi, which I've included in here. And Potosi has a really interesting story behind it. Eureka, Bullfrog, Virginia City, Metropolis, and Unionville. And this is just a small sample. Like I said, Nevada has hundreds of ghost towns throughout the entire state. You can't really drive anywhere once you get out of the Vegas Valley without encountering a ghost town. Okay. So why are there so many in Nevada? Like I said, there's 600 plus ghost towns and mining camps that have been abandoned, completely abandoned, or fall within that working ghost town category. Homesteading and vast open land, like I had mentioned earlier, was one reason why people wanted to come out and explore the West. Boom towns rapidly grew. It's amazing. Towns would just develop overnight. And then residents would suddenly leave in high numbers caused by natural disasters, government shutdowns, job loss, wars. Basically, no more gold, silver, etc. means no more mining jobs. And resources and businesses dwindled. So there was no reason to stay in the town. Or if residents still remained behind and businesses shut down, they had no resources. So they ended up packing up and leaving as well. And real quick, the photo there, that is from the School of Mines in Henderson. Love that little museum, would investigate there quite often, as well as I volunteered during their open houses. And that first yellow train, that one actually came from Area 51. And this is in Henderson, Nevada, so it's not even in a ghost town, but I included some of the photos and some information in the book just because it was an interesting tie and connection, because they have so many artifacts from different ghost towns. Like there's an elevator shaft inside the museum that came from Nelson, and that one is extremely haunted. I've seen shadow figures walk into there. I've had people come to me at open houses saying they've seen someone dressed as a miner, walk into the elevator shaft when nobody was there dressed that way. So really interesting. And then around that train, we were doing we had a table set up and we were talking to people at the event. And we would see little boys' footsteps, little boys' feet around the area. And when you would go up with an EMF meter, you could get high amounts of electromagnetic activity around that car. But when you got to that white car, there was no activity whatsoever. So that train held something, we believe. And when I had Catherine Sorilos on the show, she actually envisioned that little boy might have been a test subject of Area 51. So that was kind of interesting, and it offered a new perspective. So I cannot wait to get back out there and continue some more investigations around that little train area to see what is actually going on with that. Okay, so why are ghost towns haunted? You basically have high levels of energy. Of course, you had the countless bar fights, saloon fights, the meeting at high noon on the street. Of course, accidents, because safety wasn't always a big concern back then, and diseases. Several of these locations have artifacts and antiques that hold on to energy. Then, like I said, sudden deaths and accidents. Residents just love their hometown. So why not hang out in the afterlife? They absolutely loved it. And then one theory I have is that these ghost towns could be haunted because of self-manifestation. A lot of the ghost towns that have high levels of activity, they host reenactments. They, do different things. They truly believe, and okay, the reenactments can do two things. One, it can imprint on the environment. So then we're seeing that energy play over and over. Or two, it can attract spirits. Then also, because we have been told so many stories, that different things are haunted. Like, I'm trying to think of one location, the Goldfield Hotel. A lot of people have claimed to have encountered a spirit that jumps out from behind the curtains. So is that really a spirit that jumps out from behind the curtains, or was that a spooky story that was started during, whether it was a tour or anything else, and now people truly believe that is there? So now that because they believed it's there, they've self-manifested the spirit on the location. And then, of course, natural disasters. And in this photo, my son and I, this was when we were in Gold Point filming for Real Haunts Ghost Towns. And I wish I could remember what he was pointing at, but I can't remember. It was, but yeah, we had a lot of fun on filming that show. Are all ghost towns haunted? My best answer is yes and no. I know that doesn't help, but that's the best I can do. Of course, not all ghost towns have paranormal claims. Trust me, I've researched all 600 plus ghost towns in Nevada, and not all of them I think there was only like 20 or 30 in the southern area that I managed to get information from. And that could be the spirits remain quiet. And I swear I spell checked. So yes, spirits remain quiet, and they don't want to be known. So they kind of hide in the shadows. People experience things, but they don't want to tell anybody. Or in some working ghost towns, people are just too busy to notice. I know in Nelson, the owners had mentioned that they know the spirits are there, but they don't notice them because they're busy about going about their day. So there's several reasons why there are no paranormal claims in these towns, and some just hard to get to, like Potosi. You have to hike or take mountain bikes or ATVs out there. There are several ghost towns where you can only access through ATV because they're so far out that hiking would take you forever. And so, yeah, it's people might not get there. So people, not enough people visit it to experience paranormal activity. Okay, and this photo here, spooky creations, but it's in Rhyolite, and that is from the Goldfield Open Air Museum, I believe it's called, and they have ghostly figures like that, a giant penguin. I think I have a photo in later on, but they also did a replica of the Last Supper and a whole bunch of different things. So yeah, that was an interesting location. With lots, Rhyolite has a ton of paranormal activity in that area. So we'll talk more about that later on. And okay, Tommy knockers. Tommy knockers are a big story when it comes to paranormal activity. They are spirits that were believed to dwell in caves and mines, ancient beliefs. You have the Cornish. It was, similar to an Irish leprechaun. The English brownies were gnome-like creatures, or the Germans had the Biergeister, which meant mountain goats or little miners. And this photo here, it's an interesting photo. I thought it was interesting that they had it at the McCall School of Mines. And it is from the Nevada Historical Society. And you see 3 men in the front, and then in the back, there's a 4th man. Well, that is actually, he's transparent when you actually see the display. I'm trying to find the original photo, but this was back in the day. And I've actually analyzed this the best I can off of a photo. And people say, well, he's just, it was camera movement. But he's not standing in a similar position to anyone because he has his arm up. I know the man in the front has his arm up, but the guy in the back has a different arm up. The guy in the front has his right arm. The guy in the back has his left arm up. And it just, to me, I do believe that this could be a real photo of a Tommyknocker, is what they believe, or a ghost in the area, because there's too many differences for it to be camera blur. But that's just my opinion. If you guys want to see the photo, let me know, message me, and I can either put it up on the page solo, so that way you guys can download it and enlarge it, or I can email it to you. But basically, these Tommyknockers were blamed for haunting the mine. They did everything. I mean, and there's even rumors that they're haunting the Hoover Dam, because a lot of people, I mean, they also go with the gnomes and the sprites and all of that stuff that haunt airplanes. So similar to that. But they were believed to send warnings. You would hear knockings, very mischievous behavior. And it's been around since mining operations began worldwide. One thing that people say is if you hear the knock of the Tommyknocker, it's time to get out of the mine. Because a lot of people say that the Tommyknocker is knocking on the walls, trying to make it collapse. So you need to get out. Some believe it is a warning. The Tommyknocker knows the mine is about to collapse. So people then get out. The other one is, the other theory is that it's not a Tommyknocker at all. This comes from those who are skeptical, which could be a very plausible theory, is the knocking is either the wood that holds the mine up is creaking, or just a natural sound that the stones make just before they collapse. So there's many different theories behind whether or not it is a Tommyknocker. Yes, we actually did a tour too, Leigh, of the Hoover Dam. Love it. Love the inside. Very, very interesting location and very, very haunted. There's a lot of activity that happens there. It's very interesting. And it's sad that they don't allow paranormal investigations at the Hoover Dam. but hopefully one day I know they've let some TV shows in, so hopefully one day they let regular investigators in. Okay. Betty, Bullfrog, and Rhyolite. You can see there, that's the representation of the Last Supper with the ghostly spirits. And then the other photo is a house that was completely made out of bottles. The man who built it used whiskey, beer, and medicine bottles that he collected from the pharmacy and the local saloon. At its peak, these towns together had a population of 10,000. It was very booming. Schools, ice plants, electric plants, saloons, banks, and brothels were all built. But the Bullfrog Mining District shut down in the 1920s, and the town is 100% completely abandoned. It was restored by Paramount to do different movies, and electricity was restored to the area. But again, it is now, once that all left, it was very just completely abandoned, but still very beautiful. The people who monitor over it do a great job. And the art installation that's there with the ghost, they also have a giant penguin because it was, one of the stories was the founder of the town, he went on a drunken binge and said that a penguin told him where the gold was. And that's just one of the stories about the whole reason why there's a penguin. And but yeah, there's a giant pink lady that looks like a Lego, whole bunch of different things out there that are very interesting. So if you guys are ever in the Southern Nevada area, definitely try to get to Rhyolite because that is a fun place. And Betty is a working ghost town, I guess you would call it, that has some stores, great barbecue restaurant if you guys are ever driving through, and that's on the main street. And then their gas station is absolutely amazing. It's huge. Best beef jerky I've ever had. There's a guy who has a stand inside the rest stop with homemade beef jerky, all flavors, from everything from mild to sriracha spicy. So I know I'm getting off topic and talking about food. I'm probably going to be making everybody hungry, but yeah, and then just their selection is near endless. So yeah, if you guys can get out there, check out Rhyolite. Bullfrog is just a small little community over there as well. And it's full of spirits if you guys, and I think I have, yep. Is Betty, Bullfrog, or Rhyolite haunted? That Last Supper thing I showed you, sorry, my cat's diving into tissue paper that I have sitting on the floor here. So hopefully, I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, but people have seen ghostly apparitions running around, shadow figures darting behind the different things. Shadow figures have been known to roam the streets. People have seen apparitions. The photo there is of the former bank. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie The Island with Ewan McGregor, and that is one of the buildings that they hid in after they escaped the island. So that is a popular location, and people have seen apparitions, heard footsteps, and have been touched while exploring that building and other buildings. People hear voices echoing through town, which could be, how sound travels. It could be from within the town that you're investigating or visiting, or it could be from outside that's echoing through the valley. The Brown Man. This is an interesting one. People have seen an apparition. He appears brownish in color. I mean, full brownish in color. Other than that, he doesn't really have any color. Pushing a wheelbarrow. Other stories have him bringing a donkey behind him. And people believe that this is of a prospector who struck it rich, went to his local barbershop to get a haircut and a beard trim. And during that, he told his barber what he had found, what he had discovered, and the barber slit his throat while he was in the chair. And it is believed that the spirit is of that person who is out searching for his lost discovery. One thing that's interesting, I found it once, but I can't find it again. So trust me, I'm going to keep searching until I find it. There was a Google Earth photo that when using Google Earth and you dove in, there was a sleuth drainage thing that had red glowing eyes coming out of it. And the way the eyes were shaped And the way they were located, it was too small to be a rat, but it could still have been a bigger animal. But it was very creepy and very interesting. I wish I would have saved it when I first saw it, but I've seen it twice and I now cannot find it anywhere. So who knows if Google Earth forced it to be removed or what ended up happening. But that was an interesting photo that, it could have been an animal, but it's just, you never know. Okay, Belmont. Belmont was the second largest city in Nevada. At the time, it had more than 15,000 residents, and it has been very well preserved, the best it can be. There is a 100-foot chimney that is, I'm trying to think, I think it's behind the courthouse. But that one is kind of eerie to look at. It was used by 1940 pilots for gun practice. So there's a lot of bullet holes. And there's one interesting story about Rose Walker. And it's connected to the Manson family. Belmont is believed to have been a Manson family hideout. And the story goes is Rose Walker was the unofficial town's protector and keeper. And she was just this frail old lady. And she would walk the town, greet the residents that were living there and make sure everything was in order and it was okay. And the story goes is one day she came across 3 young women. And this was shortly after the Tate murders in California. So she came across 3 women. And they were being polite and asking her, hey, where can we go camp? Where can we do this? And she had said that, you can come visit the town, but, don't destroy it. And there's no camping within town. But if you go down this road, you'll find an open area where you can camp. And they thanked her and they went on her way. And Rose didn't think anything of it. She never saw them. And later that, she did see them the next morning, because the next morning they all came back and said, thank you for telling us where to camp, and whatnot. And then they left. And at that point in time, she never saw or heard from them again. But she was really, surprised at how the report said that she was surprised at how polite they were. They were prim and proper and very polite. One thing that's interesting is on the photo on the left, it says, what was it? Yeah, Charlie Manson. Anybody could have etched that, but many people do believe that the Manson family did get into the courthouse and did etch that, because strange occurrences happen inside the courthouse, especially around that area. So who knows what the Manson family did when they were in there, if they were in there, what they summoned, because there were several reports of him dabbling in the dark arts and a whole bunch of other things. So there's that. But then Miss Rose, she went to go visit her sister and saw a newspaper, because she didn't get newspaper delivery out in Belmont. It was in the middle of nowhere. And while she was visiting her sister, she saw the newspaper on the dining room table. And on the front page were the photos of the people who did the Manson murders out in California. And thank you, Jessica. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I see Courtney has popped on as well. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. But anyway, I lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. But she saw the people the 3 girls that she had encountered in Belmont. And she was like totally floored that these polite 3 girls were the ones behind these murders. So it was very interesting. Rose actually, this frail old woman, Rose Walker, stood up to, at the time, what was believed to be the most dangerous group of murderers in the country. So it's a very, very interesting story. Whether it's true or not, I'm not 100% sure, but there are several accounts where she's shared this story with friends and family, and the story has passed on and is probably one of those stories that is going to live for quite some time. Okay. And Boulder City. I know I mentioned earlier about the Hoover Dam. You guys can see the Hoover Dam there, and with the bridge that goes over. When we moved to Vegas, I was like dreading having to go over that bridge, but it really wasn't too bad. They had the walls on the side high enough. But anyway, So you have the railroad tunnels. Railroad tunnels, for those of you who saw Ghost Adventures Lake of Death, I had talked about the railroad tunnels a little bit. People hear eerie footsteps following them, sounds of men talking, and of course the acoustics in the tunnels. It could be from further down, but a lot of people have confirmed that they are alone in all of the tunnels. And the tunnels were interesting because they were actually used to get supplies from DJ. Sorry about that. They were actually used to get supplies from Vegas to the dam. Several men were believed to have died from pneumonia at the Boulder City Hospital, but that was later, a cover-up, or were believed to be a cover-up, and that they actually died from carbon monoxide poisoning from working in the tunnels while the trains were going back and forth. The Boulder Dam Hotel, one of the most haunted locations in Boulder City, and I think I talk about that a little bit more. If I don't, I'll make sure I bring that up down below. Howard Hughes had stayed there after his 1943 crash, where he crashed his experimental plane into Lake Mead. People have reports of their ankles being grabbed while standing in the lobby. Rooms are believed to have knocking noises. Running water has been heard coming from the bathrooms, and when someone goes in to check, there's nothing happening in the bathrooms. Almost sounds like either someone left a sink on or a pipe burst, just continual flow of water. People have encountered a former employee, Tommy Thompson. He has been seen carrying luggage in, early 1920s bellhop type costume, goes into the elevator and, stands there with whoever's in the elevator. And by the time the person reaches the floor that they're going to, Tommy's gone. And nobody knows where he goes or what happens. Inside the ballroom, people have heard, or from inside the ballroom, walking in the hallway, people have heard sounds of a party, glasses clinking, music playing, people laughing, people having fun. And knowing that the ballroom wasn't booked, they open it up so they can kick out whoever's in there, and it's completely empty. So plenty of paranormal activity happening in that area. Excuse me. Okay, Boulder City Pet Cemetery. This was an interesting place. We couldn't get into it when we went, but we were able to walk around it, around the outside perimeter. So these photos I've actually gotten from the website of a guy who was able to get in, and he took photos of every single gravestone and grave inside the Hoover Dam. But this is where people buried their beloved pets. As you can see, Flash, the son of Rin Tin Tin, is also buried there. So there's a lot of historical significance to the area. But the thing is this area was never meant to be a pet cemetery. A couple different stories. One was a local veterinarian purchased the land and started using it but didn't get approval from the city to use it to bury remains. So it was still illegal. Others believe that people just started burying their pets there, and that's what happened. There's signs all around the property that says do not bury your pets here, but people still do, because there are some fresh graves that have been seen in there. It's just real interesting. The city has now bought it. They've fenced it off and have protected it. I did training in Lake Mead and a craft. Yep. Yeah. Sounds interesting, Leigh. That would have been interesting to watch. I've watched different, like the sheriff's department after 9/11, when I was a newspaper reporter, do different drills and stuff like that, and survival skills, and that's interesting. I would have liked to have seen that at Lake Mead. But yeah, anyway, moving on. Sorry, I get distracted by shiny objects like the comments, but I love the comments. So guys, comment away and ask questions. But yeah, they've roped it off, and they've now preserved this area because they don't want to disturb any of the pets. Several paranormal claims include just strange sounds, feelings of being touched, full body apparitions walking around of people and pets, shadow figures. And there's this one story that I found that's adorable. There's a white cat that you can hear his bell jingling. And then he'll come up to you, and you know how cats kind of weave in and out of your feet when you're standing? And it'll start doing that, and people can hear it purring. And when they bend down to pet it or pick it up, it's gone. So it's kind of interesting. And people have heard off in the distance a cat bell, and just very, very cute little story. So yeah, that would be one thing I would love to experience when I was there. And it's also no proof of this one, but there are several claims that this was, I mean, this is in the middle of nowhere. It's not even really in Boulder City. It's just on the outskirts. That it was a popular mob dumping ground. And they would just, dump their victims out there. Perfect place for it. But like I said, there's no documentation, no proof of that. But who knows what could be buried out there where these pets are. And it is believed to be one of actually the most haunted pet cemetery in the world. Okay, going back to the Hoover Dam. 70 stories tall and 600 feet thick. It is, this part always cracked me up. There are 96 official deaths at the Hoover Dam. And that's just because during the construction, and this was from accidents and a whole bunch of different things. But yeah, they say it's well more into, a couple hundreds, depending on, there were several deaths, like I said, after the construction of people dying from pneumonia or illnesses, which could have been related to using the different chemicals and the different stuff going on with that. And then you have the Michael Callahan Pat Tillman Bridge. It's the site of more than 100 suicides. And that actually has stories of people. One story from a cab driver is he witnessed a lady in a nightgown walk across him on the bridge, and he stopped to pull over because she was crying and looked distressed. And when he went to go help her, she suddenly jumped over the side of the bridge. And when he looked over the bridge, in shock that she actually jumped, because she completely ignored him the whole time she was walking, didn't even acknowledge that he was standing there, just kept looking forward, and she jumped over. When he looked over the side of the bridge, there was nobody jumping to their death. So that is believed to be residual energy of the final moments of one of the spirits who did jump over the side of the bridge. Other paranormal activity is people see ghosts in construction clothing in the tunnels, hear disembodied voices, footsteps, extreme temperature drops, flickering lights, tools have gone missing, and other people have also reported hearing sounds of water dripping. And when they go to investigate, there's no signs of any water dripping. Good morning, Mike. Thank you for joining us today. There are theories that men have been buried in the concrete, but the more research I've done with that, and I actually, in writing of my last book, I did email back and forth quickly with a structural engineer, and he said that that would have made the Hoover Dam unstable, and that was not true, because the Hoover Dam was actually constructed in giant blocks that were brought in. So the concrete was poured elsewhere, and then the blocks were brought in. And that was just what he had said. So I'm not sure. I tend to lean towards the science in that it's not true that they're buried in the concrete, but you never know. It is the most haunted location in the region. Lake Mead, which was created by the construction of the Hoover Dam. There have been several plane crashes, including one where several people have died. I know at the bottom of Lake Mead, there is still a military plane that they now use for scuba diving excursions. And the low water levels has revealed several bodies that have been dumped in there, believed to be by the mob. It is what I wish I would have discovered the information before I published the book, but my Las Vegas, Ghost of the Las Vegas Valley, that one had reference to someone who was murdered at Circus, or he went missing. And he was actually one of the victims that they found in a one of those metal barrels in Lake Mead as the water is drained. So it would have been interesting to have had that. I'll make sure to include that in there. And also there are theories that the Hoover Dam is a close visual match to the throne of Satan, and as well as several of the symbols and statues there are of satanic belief, but represented in a non-threatening way. So that's one interesting theory. I heard about the catfish as big as the Volkswagen bugs. No, I did not. I might have to look into that. That would be interesting. But yeah, and then the other one is we have the little dog of the Hoover Dam. He is the unofficial mascot of the Hoover Dam, who He was a puppy who was found. The construction workers adopted him. They loved him to death. And he actually even had his own lunch pail. He would go to lunch with the workers. He was better at walking the catwalks than a lot of the workers were. He'd climb construction ladders. And it was always said that if you messed with the dog, you had to report to the foreman because you were in trouble. So the dog was heavily protected. And I'm going to have to check that out, definitely. Thank you for that information, Leigh. I always get good information from you to research. So yeah, that's one thing I'm definitely going to have to check out. But yeah, so this dog one day, he was sleeping underneath a truck. The driver got in, not knowing the dog was under the truck, backed up and killed the dog. Several people have reported seeing the dog darting through the tunnel, or a black dog darting through the tunnel when no pets are allowed there. They've heard dog barks. They've also seen him. This is a picture. He is actually buried right by the parking garage of the Hoover Dam. So that is his tombstone, and then he's buried down below. So it's a very interesting and sad story, but yeah, and it is believed by especially employees that work there today that the little dog that was the unofficial Hoover mascot is still haunting and enjoying his time at. Okay, El Dorado Canyon and Nelson. This town was the place to be before Vegas was built. It was originally settled by Spanish settlers in the late 1700s. It was first a mining town due to the strike in gold and silver in 1859. And then it grew. It was one of the fastest growing towns in the area. But then you had everybody coming in. You had Spanish Civil War deserters, prospectors, and desperados all settling into the area. So you can only imagine what it was like. The Civil War deserters were from both North and South. So there was actually several encounters where it was almost as if, even though they were no longer fighting for the war, they were still fighting each other. And just very interesting. So they kind of continued the war without continuing the war out in Nevada. They say that the riches found in El Dorado Canyon were paid with blood. It was named after Charles Nelson. And Nelson was, along with 4 others, was killed by a renegade Indian in 1897. And that Indian came through and just, decided he didn't want these people in the area and took matters into his own hands instead of following his leaders, and kind of got rid of Nelson, who was believed to be one of the leaders of the town. So, okay, the history of Nelson. The San Pedro, Los Angeles, and Salt Lake City railroads ran through the area from 1901 to 1905, and it ended because Nelson is right on the Colorado River. So it ended because they were using steamboats instead to do that, and there was no need for the trains to go through. The mine officially closed in 1945, and then eventually when cars were invented, it became a stopping point on Highway 165 with a quick gas station. But then there was a flash flood that destroyed the town in 1974 and forced all the residents, most of them, I think there's a few still remaining behind in addition to the owners, they all fled. Then the 2 owners of the town, they work to preserve the buildings that are there and do everything they can to. It's a really fun. They've turned it into a fun tourist attraction. It's a rare Western showcase, like I had said. You can see the photos there, and that the big building on the bottom is the Welcome Center, rest stop, and place to see. It's also their museum that they have. There's only 37 residents as of 2010. It has been used for many films, including 3,000 Miles to Graceland. You can see the plane prop. That prop was created for the film, and then when they were done filming, they just left it. So a lot of people think that that is an actual plane crash when it wasn't. It was from the film. Several music videos, commercials, photo shoots for modeling have all been done in Nelson. And then you can also do tours of the area and go down. They have guided tours into one of the mines down there that you can go into. Okay, is Nelson haunted? These photos are of a former mine that we actually investigated for Real Haunts Ghost Towns. One thing I want to say real quick is don't go into abandoned mines unless you either have a tour guide, have been instructed what to do, or know what you're doing. Many people have disappeared by not knowing what they're going into, and including in these, we had a tour guide instruct the film crew before we went in, telling us where we could go and where not to go. And it was, don't go down this tunnel because at, somewhere, however far away, it drops into, they don't know where the bottom of it is. So almost like it's an infinity and free fall. So that's just make sure you use safety, self-awareness, know where you're going, and just, common sense when you go into these things. And that's a big push that Nevada is doing to get people not to go into these mines unless they know what they're doing, they know where they're going or what they're doing. Several shootings happened in Nelson, which causes a lot of hauntings. Paranormal experiences include being touched, hearing voices, hearing footsteps following you, shadow figures, but it could be a whole bunch of different things. And like I said, we had done an investigation in there. I had thought down one of the shafts that I had saw shadow figures walking back and forth. Felt like someone was watching us from in there. We were hearing popping noises, which could have been water dripping, or there were several water bottles scattered. There's a lot of trash in this one on our way down. So it could have been those water bottles reacting to the heat and temperature changes because it was cooler down there. So who knows what was causing all the activity, but we had some interesting personal experiences there, but nothing that we could document outside of our personal experiences. Okay, Gold Point. This was another fun town, settled in the 1880s, and it was originally named Lime Point. But because they were finding silver, they changed the name to Horn Silver in 1902. And then 1905, the Great Western Mine Company started, and that was when the town boomed. Ora May Wiley was the postmistress from 1940 to 1964. She loved that town. But then in 1927, they actually discovered gold in the area, which is why they renamed it to Gold Point. And this is the downtown area. I mean, everything's on one little street, not too far expanded, but this is that downtown area of Gold Point today. Okay, the town is very well preserved. Herb Robbins of Las Vegas with his brother Chuck and Walt Kremen, they struck it rich in Vegas, won millions, and went out and bought this town because they wanted a quiet place that they could live, and they wanted to preserve the historical value of the area. Today, there's 50 buildings that remain, a post office museum, and a former Senator Harry Wiley's home still stands. And then they have these cute little mining shacks that, have newspaper for wallpaper. Walt has put in there TV and VCRs if you want to watch. But a lot of people have had, there's no restroom facilities, no showers. There's an outhouse you can use if you decide to stay there. And then staying in Gold Point puts you in the darkest spot of Nevada. And you can see so many amazing stars in the sky when you're there. Definitely a beautiful place. That location right there is of the bar, and several different interesting things happened with that one. We had thought we had heard music when we were standing outside. Nobody was believed to be in there, but that could have been a radio because Walt does play a radio most of the time, even when he's not in the building. Inside that building, I had a sudden rush of emotions, everything from happy and sad, and it just hit me all at once. It was very, very interesting location to be at. Okay, so is Gold Point haunted? People staying in the mining cabins have expressed that they've seen shadow figures standing in the corner of the room. People have heard knocking at the door, and when they open the door, nobody's there. One theory that people believe is that is Ora May Wiley on her mail delivery trips where she would knock on the door and leave mail behind. So some people believe that that's her continuing her job in the afterlife, or it could also be residual energy. The saloon, as I had mentioned, heavy feelings, heavy sensation of being watched, and people have been touched in there. We did do outside at the Hangman's Noose, we did an EVP session, and we used a spirit box. And those of you who watch me know I try not to use a spirit box unless I can capture good evidence with it. But being where we were, there were no radio signals, so it was just all static and white noise. And the minute we turned the device on and started talking, we had several different voices, male and female, saying hello, hi, hello, like they wanted to talk to us. So it was very interesting how many people or how many spirits came through on that. And where we were, there was no radio signals whatsoever. So I always tell people, if you're going to use a spirit box, the best places to use it would be Gold Point, or we've used them inside mines or underground, because you don't have that radio interference coming through because you're underground. Goldfield. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, this is one of my favorites, and I think it's just because I visited there and had several good experiences. It started to boom in 1902 when gold was first discovered. Population boomed to more than 20,000, but Goldfield was not without its disasters. It had a fire in 1905. Then again in 1906, federal troops were called in to dispute to help resolve a labor dispute. Industrial workers were picketing. The Western Federation of Miners were having issues, and nobody was getting along, and they were fearful that it would escalate. And at points it did, to the point where there were several different physical encounters. By 1910, mining production had drastically dropped. 1913, there was a huge flood that took away several homes, and there were 2 deaths, I believe, with that one. In 1918, the Goldfield Consolidated Mining Company shut down. And then in 1923, there was another fire, and that kind of put the final nail in Goldfield's coffin and forced a lot of the people to leave. Okay. Goldfield High School. This is a popular place. Luckily, this location was saved. Didn't get affected by any of the fires or flood. It was 3 stories and over 19,500 square feet. It was the state-of-the-art school at the time. 12 classrooms, auditorium, 2 offices, 2 bathrooms, 4 storage rooms, a full-size basketball court, which was believed to be the only full-size basketball court in the state of Nevada outside of UNLV at the time. It had an extra large attic for storage. It could hold up to 450 students, teachers, and faculty. And like I said, it was untouched by the fires and the flood. But as you can see, it does need a lot of work still. Oops, I'm going to go back to that. And this location I didn't get to go inside to investigate, but I did talk to people who did investigate the inside of this building. And they've heard everything from footsteps, like a teacher's high heels coming down the stairs. People have used giant beach balls, and they've had what they believe to be a child push it around, and they've checked for drafts, and there's no drafts. One story that I shared in my book from a friend of mine, Brian Rollins, he was there, and he captured an EVP that said Lizzie's coming. And when his sister, and shortly after his sister came into the room, he called his sister's name is Elizabeth, and they called her Lizzie. So it was really interesting that happened. So lots of different experiences have occurred there. So that is definitely a hotbed of paranormal activity if you guys ever get out there and get a chance to investigate it. The Nixon and Cook buildings. These are interesting. And they've turned the first floor, as you can see. It was the bank building into a museum. So when you look in, you can see it. Then there's another window further down where you can look in, and it's set up to be like a little soda shop counter and place like that. So they've turned the whole first floor into a museum. And then in upper levels, I think you can see it in the one. Yeah, in the upper levels, they have mannequins looking out and waving, really cute museum. But this building was, as part of a whole bunch of controversy, there was believed to be a female worker, who reportedly had an affair, or she knew of illegal activity that the owners were taking. And suddenly her body was mysteriously found at the bottom of the stairwell and she was dead. So there's reports that she was, or rumors that she was killed because she was either going to share the information of her affair or she was going to report them to the authorities for their illegal activity. But her spirit has been known to haunt the stairwell. People have heard a woman crying, footsteps in the stairwell, and a whole bunch of different strange occurrences that happen around that stairwell. Okay, the Florence Mine. I love this place. We spent 2 full days there. We were actually filming for a TV pilot, which got shelved during COVID. So unfortunately that did not go through, but these are actual photos I took during our investigations at there. It was founded in 1902 by Charlie Taylor. Tom Lockhart and A.D. Parker later owned it. And then in 1923, Martin Duffy leased it, finally taking full ownership. And then when he married a local school teacher, Ruth Grove, it was left to her when he passed. And then now Ruth had left it to John Arwick, who is now the current owner of the Florence Mine. It was affected. What's interesting is the Florence Mine also had 2 fires. And when we were staying we spent the night in the owner's home. And I was in the living room with the other investigator I was with. And then the owner's children wanted to camp out with us in the living room. And I was woken up in the middle of the night to someone screaming, "I didn't start the fire." And when I sat up, nobody else was disturbed. So if someone else was standing in the middle of the room screaming that, everyone else would have stirred or woken up. So that was an interesting personal experience that I had. Then also the photos on the right-hand side were in the hoist house. And when we were investigating a storage room off the side of that, I was seeing people walking through because you could see there was little gaps between the slats of the wall. And I was hearing voices. No one else on the team was hearing it. So I wandered out into that area, did a quick investigation. We looked outside. Nobody was outside because we wanted to make sure there was nobody walking around, and nobody had wandered outside while we were there. And it was just very interesting. Outside of that, I had no other experiences in there. We found, I don't know if it was something that the owner did to make it look spookier or what had happened, but we had come across a hangman's noose that was hanging from the top of the mill house. And when I spoke to the owner and the owner's son, they said they didn't put it there, but somebody could have come on their property and done so. But up by that hangman's noose, we, myself and the other investigator, saw a black shadow person crouch down over it. Trying to think of what other experiences we had here. Oh, this was the location where when we were in the collapsed mine. I think I have, oh, nope, okay. I think I have photos later on with the collapsed mine, but I'll show you guys that in a moment. But in the collapsed mine where I went and crawled back to where it was actually collapsed in a dead end, while I was back there, it was just myself, and then the camera guy was a few feet behind me. Started an EVP session. All of a sudden I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was being crushed, and I started hearing the screams of men. Nothing, of course, was captured in the EVP session. I started crying, and once I got out of there, I was perfectly fine. We found out later on that the mine had collapsed. They couldn't get all the men out, and they still don't know today if they've gotten all of the men out of there. So, and the next photo I'm going to show you real quick is one photo that we took. It was in this room right here, the one with the hoist house, looking out one of the windows. And like I had said, we know nobody was out there. So whether or not this is paranormal, I don't know. But you guys, I don't know if you can see it right now. But you see the light, and then you see the shadow figure outside. I'm not sure, is that? Yeah, and I'll post these on my page as well. And then I do have one where I lightened it up a little bit, and you might be able to see it a little bit better. But we did have confirmation that there was nobody outside. It's not perfectly human shaped, so we don't know what it is. But definitely when we searched outside, there was no explanation as to what that could be through the window. So it's kind of interesting. We're still trying to figure that one out. Okay, I guess I didn't put the photo, but there was one photo that I had of us crawling into the mine that kind of demonstrated how narrow it was. By the way, Goldfield Cemetery, fun place to investigate. Also known as the last dig, because it was the last place miners, dug. The official ghouls. This is an interesting story. The Goldfield Cemetery used to be in downtown Goldfield, but when Goldfield started booming, they and the railroad came in, passengers would get off the railroad into the cemetery. So what they did is they hired a group of people and they called themselves the official ghouls. And in one single night, they unburied every single body and relocated every single tombstone from that location to where the Goldfield Cemetery is today. And what's interesting is there's more people buried here than residents in the town. You have everything from, what's interesting there is you see the one of the man who died of eating library paste. There is stories of an elderly man who was preparing a grave for somebody, and when he was using dynamite, he couldn't get out of the hole fast enough. So then he had died, and they just left him where he had died, digging the hole, and just buried him right there. Several people have reported seeing shadow figures darting around. Let's hope they move the bodies. Yeah. And my hope is that they got the tombstones with the correct bodies when they did move them. That was my questioning it. But yeah, people have seen shadow figures darting around, strange noises, definitely a sense of uneasiness when they're there. So lots of strange things have happened at the Goldfield Cemetery. Okay, the Goldfield Hotel. This one is a beautiful hotel. I still think it's gorgeous. I hope they can get around to doing it. But the first hotel, Goldfield Hotel, was destroyed by the fires. And it opened in 1908. It's 4 stories, beautifully done with gray granite stones. They had public rooms on the first floor. And of course, they had a saloon that the women weren't allowed in. And the women had their own entrance because they couldn't go through the same entrance as the men. So the men entered the dining room through the saloon. It's basically state of the art, running water, fireproofing and fire escapes. They had an on-site power plant using steam heat to provide power to all the rooms. Beautifully carved mahogany reception desk, switchboard and public telephone booth. And it had one of the fastest elevators at the time in the state of Nevada, running 300 feet per second. And then they also had crystal electric lights. And this hotel is believed to be one of the most haunted locations in Goldfield. They several reports of Mr. Wingfield haunting it himself. People have smelled cigar smoke. This was the one that I had said where they're in the when people walk through the one dining room, there's large curtains that a spirit, jumps out and leaps out at people, scaring people and causing them to run off. People have heard footsteps coming down the stairs. Reports of 2 child spirits running around the hotel lobby and up and down the stairs. Then you have Elizabeth, who was the mistress of the hotel owner, and it was believed that she had gotten pregnant. He chained her up to a heater in her room until she gave birth, at which time he disposed of the baby's body in a mine shaft in the basement of the hotel and then murdered her. However, in my research for my book, I found out that the nearest mine shaft was 30 yards away. So there is no mine shaft in the basement. So if he did dispose of the baby's body in a mine shaft, it would have been off property, but near the hotel still. And Elizabeth, there is reports of a Elizabeth that moved from Goldfield with a baby. So there's theories that, she never did die in there, and that is just an urban legend that has been passed around. So several different stories, but yeah, all interesting and that could also fuel. Yeah, why wait till she gave birth? I know. If he was going to do it, he should have just done it. But yeah, this has been a hotbed of paranormal activity, and paranormal investigators do everything they can to get in there. Okay, is Goldfield haunted? I think from some of the stories, you guys might agree with me that it is haunted. Like I said, the Goldfield Hotel. George Wingfield, 2 children, moving objects, and then room 109 is where Elizabeth was believed to be. The John S. Cook building I talked about, Claudia, she was the employee who was found dead at the bottom of the stairs. The Goldfield High School, the one photo there is the garage across the street, and people have seen strange shadow figures looking out. The Florence mine, that is actually the top right-hand photo. That is the mine shaft that we crawled into to investigate. And then Virgil Earp. For those of you who don't know, Virgil Earp moved to Goldfield, and he was the town's like assistant sheriff or deputy sheriff of the area. And several people, he died in Goldfield, even though he's not buried there. He was relocated to Washington or Oregon. But he lived there until his death. Wyatt was known to visit quite often. And several people have seen a man walking the streets with the typical hat that Virgil Earp was known wearing and his legendary mustache walking down the street and then slowly fading away and disappearing. So there are several beliefs that either it's residual energy of his patrols or that Virgil Earp still patrols Goldfield to this day. Okay, Ghost of Goldfield. This one right here is an abandoned building, believed to be a former brothel. I did get confirmation that that building is completely abandoned and locked from the outside, so you can't get into it. It is across the street from the Goldfield Hotel. I'm going to show you guys a closer view of what we think we might have. We captured something strange. I don't know if it'll show up on this presentation or not. This is the first time I'm including it. But let me go to that next one. Okay, I don't know if you can see in the window, not the front window, but the side window next to the door. There is what looks like to us like a little white glow and then an outline of a body. So what it is, we don't know. We've tried to figure it out. Nothing was close enough, as you saw in the first photo, to be a reflection of somebody. So we're still quite uncertain as to what that is. And then here's one a little closer and lightened up a little bit. Okay, Tonopah. So real quick, if you guys do have any questions, feel free to ask. You guys love the questions that you give me. And as I said, I'm always here to answer any questions you have. And let me take a quick sip because I'm starting to lose my voice. Okay, Tonopah. It was a mining town of 100 plus acres. You have the Burrow Tunnel, the Mizpah mine shaft, which you can see there. Definitely a booming town. It was booming long before Goldfield started. But then once news of gold found in Goldfield was reached Tonopah, everybody quickly abandoned Tonopah and went down to Goldfield. Okay, the Mizpah Hotel, a beautiful hotel. The current owners are doing everything they can to restore it, make it beautiful. And from what I've heard, I've never been there, but from what I've heard, it's a beautiful place. It cost $200,000 at the time with using top of the line materials. And then gaming started at the hotel in the 1940s. Jack Dempsey, a boxing legend, was known to stay there and box there. Several people have had encounters with a lady in red who has been seen walking the halls and is in one of the banquet halls as well. Strange sounds, knocks on the door, shadow people, you name it, people have seen it at the Mizpah Hotel. Okay, the Clown Motel. This one is just interestingly creepy. It is located, you can see in the top photo, behind the Clown Motel is the Tonopah Cemetery, which was in use from 1901 to 1911. It included victims from the Belmont mine fire victims. And then Sheriff Thomas Logan is buried there. George Devil Davis, who was the first African-American in Tonopah, is buried there. And Bina Veralt is there as well. It's interesting hotel. Haven't been there. I know people who have stayed there. They say it's the creepy factor is increased by 100,000% just because if you don't like clowns, this is not the vacation destination for you. and B, there's a cemetery right there. So it's definitely an interesting place. I know one of the rooms has the clown from It painted on the wall. So everywhere you go, you're going to be face to face with clowns. People have also come face to face with shadow figures, full-bodied apparitions. Things have moved. People have claimed to have witnessed the clown in the bottom photo be in different positions, whether or not it's the owner doing it overnight or something's really moving. And that little clown museum area is the most haunted and most active place in there. So is it the spirits of those buried in the cemetery? No one really knows. It could easily be self-manifestations because a lot of people have a fear of clowns, so they self-manifest their fears into paranormal activity. So there's tons of different theories as to why the Clown Motel is haunted. Okay, so is Tonopah haunted? Okay, Tonopah is known worldwide for paranormal activity, and as you can see there, that's part of the cemetery. Like I had mentioned, the Mizpah Hotel, people have encountered the lady in red. They've also encountered playful children running through the halls. People have called the front desk saying there's children running the halls, and when someone comes, they report there's no children staying on that floor, and they see no evidence of any children playing in the area. Murdered minors have been known to make their appearance known in the basement. The Tonopah Liquor Company was run by George Devil Davis. He is believed to haunt there, as well as Hattie, a former brothel employee and barmaid from the liquor company, is known to haunt. Several people have seen both of their apparitions either behind the bar or in the storage rooms. The Mining Park Visitor Center is believed to be haunted by Bina Veralt, who makes her presence known when people are there exploring. The Vanwood Variety Store, people have heard strange sounds and out of nowhere, even on a hot summer day, have experienced cool breezes and cold spots. And I had talked about the Clown Motel, and the Tonopah Cemetery has your typical shadow figures, strange voices, and eerie feelings while exploring and investigating that. Okay, Good Springs and Prim. Okay, Joseph Good was a cattle farmer in the area, and he founded Good Springs and the Prim area. It was the most productive mining district in the Clark County area. It is just south of Vegas, so not too far. It was known for lead, silver, copper, gold, zinc, you name it, this town had it. It had the railroad coming through from 1910 to 1911. The old schoolhouse was built in 1913, and it is still the oldest schoolhouse in Clark County that's operational, and it's listed on the Register of Historic Places. People have experienced a whole bunch of strange things happening in Good Springs and Prim. In the schoolhouse, people have seen strange light anomalies. They've heard children's voices. They hear like footsteps of high heels, so like the teacher walking around, and a whole bunch of different things. There are also other buildings where people have seen shadow figures in the mining district area. And strange, one person reported it was red glowing eyes were looking at them when they were in the dark in one of the mining buildings. The Pioneer Saloon is the oldest saloon in Nevada. You can still see bullet holes in the wall from a shootout, which ended up in the death of a person, and then next to one of the bullet holes, they hung the coroner's note stating how the person had died. The stamped tin on the walls was manufactured by Sears and Roebuck, and it is a solid wood bar that was carved and brought in from Maine. And if you ever get a chance to go there, get their ghost burger. It is topped with ghost peppers, so it is the hottest, spiciest burger you'll ever have. I haven't had it, but yeah, that is one of the interesting things about that place because it is still operational today. Okay. And Clark Gable and Carol Lombard have a tie to Las Vegas, or not to Las Vegas, but to Good Springs. Carol's plane crashed in 1942 in Potosi. And basically that plane was refueling in Vegas and was heading out to Hollywood and never made it. They found the remains of the plane in Potosi. Clark Gable headed right out to Nevada, and he waited at the Pioneer Saloon at the end of the bar Witnesses say that he drank himself into a stupor, and that you can see burn marks, and it's still there. You can see burn marks on the edge of the bar where he sat from falling asleep with his cigar in his hand. 22 passengers perished on that trip. And inside the saloon, people have seen Carol Lombard's apparition. They believe that she's looking to console Clark. People have seen Clark Gable's apparition sitting at the edge of the bar drinking. Other people have seen a mystery patron who walks in through the front door, sits down at the bar, orders a drink. The person turns around to make the drink. And when they turn back to give the person the drink, he's gone, and no one saw anyone leave. There's also a mystery bartender that just appears, takes orders, and then disappears. So people are left wondering where their drink is. A whole bunch of different things happening at the Pioneer Saloon. So is Good Springs haunted? The cheating gambler. I am so sorry. We are getting a thunderstorm like 4 hours early. That actually startled me. So hopefully I don't lose any internet connection. But like I had said, you have Clark Gable and Carol Lombard haunting the Pioneer Saloon. The cheating gambler was the one who died from the gunshot that the coroner wrote the note about, and then the minor was the one that's the mystery patron that comes in, orders a drink, and disappears. Here you can see the old mining cabins, and there are several reports that those are haunted, and that was one of the cabins where someone had experienced the red eyes staring back at them. The history of Primm. This area, this has an interesting history. It was formerly known as State Line, but they changed it in 1966, naming it after Ernest J. Primm. And that was mostly because there was already another city in Nevada named State Line. It straddles I-15, which is the main highway you take from Vegas to California. And Whiskey Pete, Peter McIntyre, he was the gas station owner when it first started. But he decided to turn to bootlegging. And he had died in 1933. He was buried. Reports say he was buried standing up with a glass of whiskey in his hand so he can continue to watch over his bootlegging enterprise. But he was accidentally exhumed. They came across his body accidentally because his grave was not marked. When they were building, there's a bridge that goes over I-15 from Whiskey Pete's and then the other hotel across the street. And they ended up reburying him nearby in a cave where he used to make his whiskey. Okay. Famous landmarks in Primm. Buffalo Bill's Resort and Casino is the photo right below. That one has a roller coaster, beautiful, especially at night when you drive by it. Home to amusement park and a whole bunch of other activities. So there's, if you want to stay there, you can. There's plenty to do. The Bonnie and Clyde exhibit, as you can see on the right-hand side, that has the bullet-riddled Bonnie and Clyde's death car that they were shot in, which was the stolen V8 Ford. Clyde's death shirt you can see there. People have had a lot of experiences in this area. They've seen apparitions, what they believe to be Bonnie and Clyde, sitting in the front seat of the car. Some have seen them living. Some have seen them as if they were dead. Other people have seen strange lights darting in and out of the car while they're there. So a whole bunch of different occurrences happen in there. Also at Whiskey Pete's Saloon, people have seen the apparition of Pete himself looking over the second floor banister down at the casino floor, continuing to monitor it. People have also reported going into the saloon, gambling a little bit or eating, or into the casino, gambling a bit and then eating, and coming out to their car, knowing they needed to get gas before they went in because they had, a quarter of a tank, half a tank or whatever. But when they get in the car and start it up, they have a full tank of gas. So that is part of one of the urban legends related to Whiskey Pete, who continues to do that because there are reports that he never wanted anyone to go without gas because he wanted them to get to their destination. So if they didn't have enough money to get there, If they didn't have enough money to fill their tank with gas, he was known to, sorry, my dog's freaking out. He was known to give them a free tank of gas or have them just pay whatever they could afford. So it was definitely interesting. Okay. Hopefully we can, yeah, wow, the lightning, I know. And I checked, it wasn't supposed to start till 4:00. So hopefully I can get through this before it knocks out my internet. 7 Magic Mountains. Though that's not really a ghost town, I've included it just because, and I see my videos going wonky. But hopefully I can do this. But it's an interesting location. It was an art installation that went up in May 2016. Those stones stand 30 feet tall. It was basically a creative expression of the human existence in the desert. They have renovated these several times, shutting down the installation to repaint it, to make it vibrant. You can find it near Jean's Dry Lake Bed and Interstate 15. It's about 10 miles south of Las Vegas. Definitely worth the visit. They're impressive. They're massive. And it's cute because people have made mini replicas using the stones in the area. So you'll see little rock gardens and all of that stuff hanging around there as well. But people have reported seeing shadow figures darting around behind the stones. But that's about it here. But this is one thing that I always tell people: if you get a chance to go see it, get out there, and it's definitely worth the visit. Okay, Potosi. Earlier we had mentioned Potosi and Carol Lombard's plane. This area was founded in 1856 by prospecting Mormons who were looking to find a new location that they could settle down in without being persecuted. It became the top producer for zinc in the state. It is the oldest mine in Vegas, or in Nevada. And this was the site of the TWA Flight 3 crash that killed 22 people, including Carol Lombard. People who have visited, as you can see there in the photo, it's photos of the crash and them trying to see what they can salvage and rescue at the time. And people have heard screams, cries. But yeah, this is one of those locations that you definitely need an ATV or great hiking skills to get to, because it's in the middle of nowhere and up in the mountains. So yeah, it's an interesting place. I haven't been there just because I didn't have an ATV or mad hiking skills at the time. But I know a lot of people who have made it out there, and they just say it's a completely eerie feeling. There are still some remnants of the airplane still there, but other than that, most of it has been cleared away. But it is just, they say it's just an amazing place to go, and an eerie feeling. Okay, St. Thomas, I mentioned earlier. This used to be hidden by the rising waters of Lake Mead. 1865 Mormon settlers settled there. It was also an ancestral Pueblo settlement known as the Lost City that was just across the river. And the town, when they were building the Hoover Dam, they came in and there was a government order for people. They offered to buy the property to help them, and those who didn't sell their property were eventually evicted. There are reports, even though I can't find much to confirm it in as far as government documents, but there are reports that one man refused to leave and he ended up drowning. But I don't have, like I said, I don't have government documents proving that, outside of just a couple different websites claiming that. So I'm not 100% sure. It is believed to be haunted now that with the water receding and it's starting to appear, people have seen shadow figures, heard voices of like a bustling city, just a whole bunch of different things happening. So very, very interesting story. They actually also developed a gas station to help the first cars that were coming through, and it was used to be a rest stop as well before it was put underwater. Okay, Searchlight, definitely another one of those boom towns in 1907. Even though it didn't boom as big as the other towns. When gold was discovered, population went up to more than 1,500 people. It is a cute little town. It has a beautiful museum that is related to the Clark County Museum that's operated by them as well. And this town, there's a couple different stories behind why it's called Searchlight. The first one is someone had said you can only find it if you use a searchlight. And another one is The type of match that was used during the discovery of gold were searchlight matches. But yeah, a whole bunch of different stories. And then one other theory that I just came across was it was one of the steamboats that used to come through was named Searchlight. So the last mine closed down in 1953. Okay, so is Searchlight haunted? Here we have a photo of the Searchlight Cemetery. People have seen light anomalies, shadow figures, hear footsteps. People say the streetlights flicker for no reason, and just an overall sense of dread. Over in the Searchlight area, a Navy plane, a Lockheed P-3, crashed. Several reports, government reports, claim that it was a lightning strike that caused the plane to crash. Witnesses on the ground claim that they looked up and saw a UFO shoot it down, or they would see the UFO at the same time it crashed, so they think the UFO had something to do with it. So a whole bunch of different theories, but people have reported seeing in the area walking the streets men dressed in Navy flight gear walking around, and so a whole bunch of different claims associated with that. And that is an interesting story that I know I want to research some more. Bonnie Springs Ranch. This place, I am so bummed that they sold and tore down to build houses, but it's a former stagecoach stop. One of the most haunted locations. I know Ghost Adventures was there and a couple other of the shows, but people have claimed to see the wax figures in the museum move. There's a merry-go-round outside that would spin on its own, and they believed a little girl would be playing on it. Doors would slam for no reason. Strange noises would happen. The tunnels would have odd occurrences. Activity would peak when they would do their high noon reenactment. And people would also hear gunfire when no one was shooting a gun. Okay, we've made it to the end. So for those of you who don't know, this was based off of Haunted Southern Nevada Ghost Towns. It's from Arcadia Publishing. You can get it through the History Press. You can also buy it in Nevada at Clark County Museum, Walgreens, Walmart, Target, Barnes & Noble, and the Psychic Eye gift shops have them. If not, you can either message me. I have 4 copies available right now that I can autograph and send out. Or like I said, you could also get it on Amazon or directly from History Press. The next book I wrote was Ghosts and Legends of the Vegas Valley. Same locations, and I believe the Mob Museum has this book as well. And this also, Ghosts and Legends of the Vegas Valley, also included more detailed information about the Boulder City area. So it's kind of the Boulder City section is kind of a continuation of what I did in Haunted Southern Nevada Ghost Towns. Okay. And I'm hoping this plays for you guys, but here's the preview from Real Haunts Ghost Towns. And of course the video is not playing. There we go. Okay. Okay, and from what I've heard, the book is in the Mob Museum, which is in downtown Las Vegas. And that's mostly because I included the Mob Museum is in the book, as well as there's several stories about mob activity in that book as well. Okay, and then there we go. And then this one is from Real Haunts 3, which was a continuation of our Goldfield investigation. Okay. Oh, come on. Oh, and of course, you guys know about this show. This, like I said, this is a presentation that I use when I do other things. And then that is my huge bio that I throw up at the end of it. Yeah, thanks, Leigh. No, I don't have any mob ties that I know of. But anyway, Todd, I'm done with the presentation. You can pull it out of the screen. Thank you so much. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this presentation. Like I said, I was trying to figure out what to do that would take up the 2 hours since my guest had to cancel on me. So hopefully, again, best wishes to Jeff, and hopefully we can get him on soon so that can help out. And if you guys, I'm wrapping it up here. Oh, thanks, Todd. But yeah, again, next week, I'm going to have Howard Petrie on the show. He is going to be talking about his nonprofit and FearFest 2023 in New Orleans. Keep your fingers crossed. I'm supposed to be one of his speakers there, but I just don't know if I'm going to be able to get out there for that because I have other conflicts and other commitments that I need to work on in October. But if not, I will definitely be there next year when he hosts the FearFest again, because I think they're doing it every year in New Orleans. So we'll get all that details on that next week, tomorrow night on Ghost Education 101, both on YouTube and Facebook or Parallax TV. We are going to be doing a panel discussion about Ouija boards. So make sure you tune in. We have amazing guests. They're the board of directors from the Talking Board Paranormal Society, and they will be joining us. And in 3 weeks, I'm going to have the most exciting guest ever. Leigh will be joining me on the show. So we'll be talking about her paranormal experiences as well as that of a couple others who are not full-time paranormal investigators. So that will be a fun show to be a part of. And then Thursday, make sure to join in for Passport to the Paranormal with myself and Joe Frankie. We don't really have a topic this week, but it's always a fun show, and we always love goofing off and having fun while still being serious paranormal investigators. And if you guys want a copy of either Haunted Florida Lighthouse, or not lighthouses, Haunted Southern Nevada Ghost Towns, or I can't even talk. Ghosts and Legends of the Vegas Valley, let me know. I do still have some copies that I can autograph and sign and ship out. So again, thank you everybody for joining today. It was a fabulous show. If you're watching the replay, I hope you enjoyed it. If you have questions and you're watching the replay, message me and I will make sure I get you those answers. Again, we will see you guys in 1 week, and you guys all have a fabulous day.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTKDB.com.